to the best brains from the Bay and beyond. So stoked to be here today with a couple of wonderful entrepreneurs and leaders. And we're going to be exploring a little bit about women in technology and inclusive environments and how to build everybody up. So we've got Ayori from AI Newbies and Falguni from Snowflake. We're going to do a quick introduction for them. But before we get to that, I want to do a quick thank you to our sponsors. Shout out to the wonderful folks at ACG, Silicon Valley. If you're in mid-market, if you're doing deals of any kind, shape, or size, we definitely need to be part of this organization. So shout out to Yvonne and the lovely Tanya Long and all the wonderful folks that are hosting this today. Also want to do a quick shout out for our friends at Necodex. That's N-E-C-O-D-E-X. So if you're building a product or you need help with design, check them out at necodex.com for staff augmentation. Well, it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Please, Falguni, if you wanted to share with us a little bit about yourself here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. And hello, everyone. Good morning. A little bit about myself. Moved to the Bay Area 10 years back. And since then, I've been on a very exciting journey here, working with first a consulting firm and now Snowflake. My journey has mainly been focused in cybersecurity and compliance, both very, very important, functions in a company. If I can share a little bit about myself, I'm very passionate about technology. I feel that, we are all very lucky to be here in the Bay Area where we have emerging technologies every single day, and we are the first ones to, come in touch with them. And really, I feel very, very strongly about the fact that, we are in the right place today, and not just for, any particular field. You don't have to be a software engineer. Or you don't have to be a product manager, but each and every one here, whether you're from security, whether you're from sales, you could be in marketing, all of us here have the opportunity to really see the power of AI and deep technology. So again, very happy to be here, and I've had an amazing journey with both Snowflake and PwC in the past, and hope to, continue the same.
We'll dive into it. Beautiful. Yes. Ayori, please.
Hey, everyone. My name is Ayori Selassie. I'm born and raised right here in Silicon Valley. I have a bit of a baby face, but I started my first company when I was 16 during the dot-com boom. And so I was there for the crash, and I've been working on algorithms and AI since the early 2000s. I was working on AI algorithms for the utilities industries with some venture-backed startups in the early 2000s. And we were some of the first software as a service companies in the world. And we had big data before the term big data even existed. And so I'm really excited for all the things that we're doing nowadays. I also, a couple other fun facts about myself. I was on the launch team for Salesforce Einstein. I've worked at Salesforce for 17 years. My company, AI Newbies, we focus on essentially getting people ready for the transformation that we're in right now. So we really love helping executives understand how to drive the transformation with a very compassionate and humanity-centered way. And then we focus on the employees and how they can adopt it and really leverage the benefits of AI and lean in without falling over.
Beautiful. Well, we've got a pretty technically proficient audience here, so we'll dive into that. But before that, maybe we could explore a little bit about some of the unique challenges that women face in business, and what are some ways that organizations can overcome those challenges?
Yeah. It's interesting. My career, I started very young, so I've experienced both, sexism unintentionally, but also ageism, right? And I'm also from Silicon Valley, so when I go to other parts of the world, people are like, "You're weird."
Oh, they're just jealous, I think.
Silicon Valley people are weird, right? So I've experienced all of that. But the thing that I believe is that anything that might be perceived as an obstacle, you have to learn how to transform that into your edge. And so I absolutely do that. And so building networks, I remember when I was very young and early in my career, I focused on just building networks of really weird people. And I mean like the people who would stand in the back of the room and would not talk to anyone. Like those are the first people who you go and talk to. They're usually going to be the smartest people. They're usually going to be the quietest people. And so whatever it is, when I think about building great companies and finding the best people, it's not necessarily about the outward exterior. It's not about what people look like. It's about being able to create a trusted environment where people can really show up honestly and bravely, and that's how you create innovative technology that changes the world. We're doing it now, but we can do it even better.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, great points, Ayori. I'd like to give some examples that I see on a day-to-day basis from my career, right? So, English is not my first language, so I'll just, come out and say that. And, when you walk into a room, in any company for that matter, right? And we walk into a meeting and you'll see that, look at the gender ratio. It's very evident, right? And when you are in the minority, you hesitate to speak up. You wonder if your point of view matters, or should you be tailoring your point of view in a way that it will be better heard. And some of the things that I've seen that helped me, or that organizations do now, is structured meetings, structured formats in which people can come and share their opinion. You have organizations now making sure that, in meetings there is, structured turn taking. And even if all of that is not possible, right, just taking a moment yourself and acknowledging other opinions, just eyeing the room and seeing, like, is there someone who's been waiting to talk for a while, right? Or has their hand up. Those behaviors can help. And something that has significantly helped me, and I also know my colleagues, is these concepts that tech companies have, where you write a one-pager, you write a two-pager, you write something, which gives you an opportunity to put down your thoughts on paper, whether you're a male, whether you're a female, right? So you have your thoughts on paper. Anyone coming into the meeting, especially bigger meetings, has the opportunity to read them prior to coming in. And that makes sure that, whenever someone's speaking up in a meeting, it's out of merit versus not someone just being, the louder one in the room or the one who knows what's the best thing to say right now. So I've found those things to be really helpful in my career, as I've grown in my career, to really give me that space, even in a bigger forum, even in a big meeting where there are, a lot of seniors and a lot of execs or leaders, where I'm comfortably able to give my point of view. So I think those things that, companies have done and that you can promote yourself, really help, right?
It almost feels like maybe like a parental role, making sure everybody gets a reasonable amount of time to speak. And so, Falguni, you mentioned creating the space. What can folks do to create more psychological safety, right? Like if people are just coming in to do work together, that feels kind of very surface level. But if you care about the other individuals in the room as a human being, you're probably going to be more open-minded to their ideas. And maybe you're going to make them feel better so they can come up with crazy, out-of-the-box ideas that can move the needle. How do both of you approach this?
I'm absolutely, very supportive of this. But I will tell you, Nick, what happens, when you're working in a corporate environment is people are trying to drive results quickly, right? And it's no one's fault in particular. It's not exclusion. It's more like, hey, I have planned that, I'm going to have this one meeting and I'm going to make sure that I get the agreement and the alignment I want and we can start executing. Right? So that's very much how, companies work, right? There's so much innovation, everything's so fast-paced. You want to be able to move quickly. You want to be able to execute quickly. You'll see all tech companies have the same motto. And so that's where, even how much ever you want to create that space, it's just that the time it's not allowing it, the purpose, the purpose is so much more important. The execution is so much more important that some of those things get sidelined. Again,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's doing it on purpose. I don't think it's exclusion specifically. It's just the pace, and that's where, as I said, having more structured formats, right? Making sure that everyone has the space. If you are an SME of a particular area, or if you are someone who really has something valuable to say, right? Again, could be a male, could be a female. Give them that space. Get into a structured format as a company where, meetings are organized. Meetings are not about people just arguing with each other, but they are of a format where you bring in valuable point of view.
Sure.
And you speak on the basis of merit,
Yeah.
right? And not because you just want to have an opinion.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I just wanted to
Yeah,
contrast
that's an
it a
important
little
distinction.
bit. Yeah.
And Ayori, what about yourself? What do you?
Yeah,
what do you
no,
think?
I think this is the easiest time than ever before to be able to create those kind of safe spaces. I think one of the things that I love about the transformation that we've had with work, where we have hybrid cultures, we have in-office cultures, we have entirely remote cultures. And so it shouldn't be anymore about who is in the room. Everybody should find a way and have a way to be in the room. That's what big data is for. So ultimately, companies are still getting it wrong. They're not leveraging big data correctly. They're not leveraging collaboration tools correctly. And so if we can get the best practices implemented, then the safe space automatically emerges.
When you say in the room, do you mean like physically?
Yeah, physically in the room. I don't want to be in the room. I want to be in my office, which is overlooking the beach. Okay?
Yeah, well,
I don't want to be in
that would
the
be
room.
ideal. Well, Jensen Huang agrees with you, by the way, from NVIDIA. He's like, I don't care where you are, just get the work done. But I'm not so sure that truly captures it. Don't you think that there's some kind of like teamwork, relationship building that happens when this would not be the same with all these wonderful people if we were on Zoom, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's true. I think it's very important to make sure that we can get together, and that when we're getting together, we feel that even when we're not in the room, we're ready and we're represented. The term representation, I think, is really important. Representation is when an organization is, all these companies, they're growing, their customers, then demographics are changing. It's not just generational, Gen Z, millennial, and whatnot. It's also cultural, right? And so having people in your companies, on your leadership teams, that understand who your customer is, how your customers are changing from a representation standpoint, and engaging that. When you talked about this concept, the safe space, that's actually really important because for humans, change is really difficult. Change is difficult. Being an innovator and having a different idea is difficult. And so what organizations are really struggling with is they're struggling with the change in people. They're struggling with the changes in cultures. So when we're talking about creating a safe space, we're actually saying, hey, let that person come forward and say something that people don't understand today, that people don't agree on today, and allow them to say it, because it may be an insight that we have to develop and grow to be able to then accept it and adapt it, and that may become our innovative edge.
I love that. And Simon Sinek mentioned that when people work together and feel like they're contributing, that process is just as important as the actual outcome itself. So if we zoom back out a little bit about how to empower women in business and technology, let's consider like unconscious biases. Is this something that you have seen maybe some of your teammates or your colleagues have expressed before? You mentioned sometimes it was intentional, sometimes not. What have those situations looked like?
We all have unconscious bias. And the whole point about bringing that up is to say that, is to make it safe to recognize that you may have a belief about someone that's based on your experience or something that you heard, and you may think it applies to everyone, but it doesn't. That's really basically what it is. When I came into this space, the first person I noticed was the president, because he had on a shiny, glittery jacket. He looked like a unicorn. So I noticed that, right? So in my mind, I said, well, this must be one of the most important people in the room because he wants everyone to see him.
He's got some flair.
Right? Now, that's a unconscious bias, right? I shouldn't then say, hey, this person over here wearing a t-shirt and jeans and sneakers is not important, but that's an unconscious bias, right? And so we have to recognize that in order to overcome it, to make sure that that person who's in the back of the room, who's actually the smartest person in the room, to make sure that we go and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I think the fact that we talk so much about unconscious bias now, and we, actively discuss it, right? Even in our day-to-day, even with your colleagues, even at a family table, like I've had this conversation with my family in terms of, how much are we recognizing that on a day-to-day basis? I think it's an achievement in itself, right? It's not just a boring HR training anymore, but it's actually something we understand, we recognize that, hey, oh, I just did this, and it could be an unconscious bias of any kind, right? Again, not based on gender, not based on race, not based on, age. It could be anything as funny as what Ayori said, right? So I think that's changing. I've seen that. I've had a lot of conversations with my my close friends, colleagues, and as long as we keep recognizing that on a day-to-day basis, it's going to become something that we stop doing.
Especially as we're building these models and these new frameworks. Oh, and speaking of which, what are some best practices when building these AI models to make sure that they're serving everybody and not getting pigeonholed or serving only a certain group?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I know that's a tricky question.
That's the big one. That's the big one. So one, I think we need to be smarter about what actually exists in our systems. When we talked a little bit about bias before, bias shows up in the way we architect our software. It shows up in the fields that we decide we want to capture, right? And so we have systems that are already structurally have bias in place. So the real challenge is, how do we break out of that? And artificial intelligence is actually a great way of breaking out of that. I love large language models. I love generative AI. I love the ability to be able to take, a piece of data, a blob of data, a conversation, and then to be able to extract not only the important aspect, the important data points in that are the insights, but also the metadata, right? The metadata from that. Because that actually allows us, and I'm sorry, I'm getting too technical, but that allows us to break out of the bias that's in place in our architectural systems, right? And I know there's probably a founder in here, or one of you know a founder who's building something like that. So if you do, come talk to me, because I love to invest. And so artificial intelligence has bias in it, but it also has this enormous potential to allow us to break out of the bias and actually capture the metadata that's important, the metadata that's moving our industries, and the insights within all that data as well.
God, that's brilliantly put. I feel like breaking out of the bias would have been an awesome name for the talk, as opposed to beyond glass ceilings. Both are good. But it also just occurred to me when you were mentioning that is that human beings, we have our own programming too, and frankly, different hardware. But it's great when we can come together and support each other. Speaking of which, have there been any? How did both of you approach mentorship? Because the space that women hold in business has changed for the better. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do. But how have mentors positively impacted your life? How do you mentor others? What does this look like?
So mentorship is great, right? When I started out in my career, I've always had some great mentors. I have people reaching out to me in my field saying, hey, we love your career trajectory. Can you share some guidance? And I'll do that, right? And I think we all do that for each other. What I feel is really important for women in tech is sponsorship, right? So, you could be doing great work, but it's important that there's someone like advocating for it, someone ready to sponsor you, someone ready to put your trust in your work, right? And so if you have a leader in the company, right, saying, hey, this person is my high performer, they're doing great work, they're doing work that has high business impact, I'm advocating for this person to move to the next level. I think that's what really helps. In the tech field, maybe it's true for other areas as well, but specifically in to build your career in tech, I think it is important that on top of mentorship, you also have someone who's your champion, who's sponsoring you, and helping you show your impact and giving you access to like high impact projects, right? And again, this is all based on you doing good work, but also being able to show that, right? So.
Well, you both have a lot more experience than I in the enterprise space, both your 17 years at Salesforce and at Snowflake. Can that be codified? Like, I know that Apple, part of the review process is how do other people in your team feel about you? How does that work in enterprise? I'm curious.
Oh my gosh, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's actually a big challenge because of some of the biases that we talked about before. So there's research that shows that based on your gender, people may value different things from you, right? I was speaking to an executive who's worked at a lot of different startups, Twitter, all these different things, and she was sharing some of the feedback that she got when she was an engineering manager. And one of the executives came and said, hey, you know what? You're really harsh. People feel like you're really harsh. Like, they feel like you're too direct. They feel like they don't feel good after they walk away from a conversation with you. Now, she's like me, growing up in the Valley with some of the smartest people in male-dominated spaces. So, that we just act like the rest of the dudes, honestly. We just act like the rest of the guys.
What does that mean when you say act like the
rest
dudes?
of the guys where hey, no, you're wrong. Actually, this is it, right? But the thing is that, and I have 2 children. I have a daughter and I have a son. And everyone has a mother, right? And so what are we used to from our mothers? Oh, sweetie, come here, no, this way, sweetie, right? This soft, gentle correction. This is what we're used to from our mothers. And so in the workplace, women get expected to treat other people as if they're their mothers. And here's the thing. I'm here to tell everyone, I'm not your mama. I ain't your mama, okay? I'm your colleague, right?
Yeah.
And so don't expect that from me. Now, is that a career-limiting behavior? Yes, it is. It is. But back to your point about mentorship. At the end of the day, what I focus on is friendship. With my friends who are smart and wonderful and incredible and building transformative things, they want me to be honest. They don't want me to coddle their ego. So the people that I work with and the people that mentor me, they're also my friends. And that's really important. And so I always encourage everyone, look around and see, like, who are you friends with, right? And do your friends represent the changing market of your customers? Because if they don't, then you're at risk for the innovator's dilemma.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome because it feels like a mutually beneficial relationship rather. Like when I hear the word mentorship, it feels kind of very one-sided, almost like didactic, like somebody's like telling you what to do, as opposed to something dynamic that's beneficial all around, So I was learning a little bit recently about watches. There's this really cool podcast called Acquired, and I was learning about the genesis of Rolex. And early on, watches were actually a lot bigger right? Because they had all sorts of gears and moving stuff in them. And then after a war in Europe, I think it was, the folks on the battlefield ended up putting the watch on their wrist because it was too hot. They couldn't take out their jacket, and because you're obviously you're busy. And then it started to become pretty popular. Before that, watches were called wristlets, which is kind of interesting. So now Rolex is making $10 billion a year. They're a pretty private company, but it's an important piece. Like watches, it's like almost like in your tool belt. And now like we all have our phones, but before that was like if you didn't have your watch, similar situation. What are some different tools that folks can implement, specifically women in business, to empower themselves, to empower other women, and create a great dynamic for career growth?
I can chime in here. I would definitely say, learn to advocate for yourself, right? Don't hesitate. And again, this is speaking from experience, right? Don't hesitate to send out a quick win, something's going well, you send out a quick email, send out an update, thank your team, and just do that, right?
How can you do it without like chest beating, taking credit? Do you know what I mean? Like doing it tastefully.
I think I would say AI helps. But,
okay.
To be honest, AI has made these things a little easier, right?
Yeah, sure.
Previously, you would put so much thought into it and think about, hey, what's the right way to say it? What's the right tone? How do I not sound too, too proud, right? How do I tone it to the point where, I'm making sure the win is heard, but at the same time, I'm giving credit to the rest of the team. I'm laying out the facts and not sugarcoating something. It helps, right? Speaking from experience, I used to really spend a lot of time preparing updates and getting all of this in a proper format, and I would still doubt myself and say, hey, am I sounding right? But AI has made these things easier. But that's a side thought. But I would just say, don't hesitate to advocate for yourself. And it could be an email. It could be a quick, one slide that you present somewhere. It's just you even chime in, and don't hesitate to show that piece. That's a very important tool. I encourage everyone in my team to do that. It's like, hey, you're doing all of this great work. Do you want to just take a moment and write it up? Write like 4 bullets, and I'll help you send it out, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy, anything formal, no pretty slides, but just don't hesitate to advocate for yourself.
I love the idea of like stepping into your power. In fact, Tanya speaks to that. Do you remember when you both first started self-advocating, and what were the fruits of that effort?
Yeah, I'm not great at self-advocating, honestly. I am a very quiet, introverted person. I prefer not to speak up in the room if I don't have to. I'm very happy to, get together, do the work in a smaller room, and have someone else go and present. Wow. I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this back to AI and how it's transforming things. One of the things that folks are kind of up in arms about is, hey, AI, they're bringing in these AI agents, all these things, it's replacing jobs, yada, yada, yada. But actually, I believe that the AI transformation is one of the things that will actually get rid of like the charlatans and the people who like take credit for other people's work. And here's one reason why. If you've standardized in your organization collaborating with AI, that means that you also have to put in place new processes and structures, document structures, et cetera, to be able to allow the AI to follow and maintain context and presence throughout the entire workflow. So in that concept and that transformation. Gone are the days where somebody just comes in and clones your document, puts their name on it, and presents it in a big room.
Yeah.
Right? Because that breaks the flow of the AI integration. So what we're driving for and how we're trying to innovate with AI is actually to ensure that the people who are commenting on these documents and making the changes on these documents and saying, actually, this is wrong, this is right, you see, oh, Betty actually commented on this document and made changes in this document 80% more than everyone else, but this other person is presenting. Yeah. When that project becomes a success and people say, who worked on this? Don't ask John, ask AI.
Yeah.
Ask AI, who worked on this? And AI is going to be able to tell you a data-driven, meritocratic answer. And I think this is really important, and it's one of the elements that is going to drive what we call the perspicacity effect. It's a concept that's been going around. Perspicacity effect is when you know the language of ideas, when you know the language of ideas that change the world, and you use AI to accelerate that, you can really transform things. And so that's what we're unlocking when we put in place these new processes, when we cut out all these middle managers who are like, oh, well, let me put my little fingerprint on it, as Andy Jassy at Amazon said. Cut those people out, so that the folks who are actually focused on doing the work, they don't have to spend all this time chest beating. Everyone knows what you contributed. And so they invite you to the next meeting because they know you did the work anyway.
What was it? Perspicacity effect.
Perspicacity effect.
I also liked how you dropped charlatan. That's a fun word too. So when we think about like implementing artificial intelligence, it's like, I think when people hear the word or the letters AI, they kind of they can go down a rabbit hole. But in reality, it's a technology tool to drive workflow automation and become more efficient and be smarter, right? So like, what are some of the challenges around adopting AI? Is it employee buy-in? Is it making sure that you're using the right tools? What are some of the hangups? We want to make this practical so the folks in the audience can take some lessons away here. And then also, right after this, we're gonna open it up for the audience. So if you have a question, start thinking about that as well. So
yeah, the flow of work. The flow of work is the thing that's changing, the processes. And a lot of people are saying, well, let's talk to HR and let's get the insights from HR. And I'm like, sorry, HR is not going to be able to tell you how to do this. When you think about the actual flow of work, the people who best understand it are the program managers and the project managers. They know how to make sure it gets done. They know what the real flow of work is. So, but unfortunately right now, one of the things that's happening is with the the current wave in transformation, a lot of program and project managers are getting laid off. And that's because the industry actually doesn't recognize that they are the experts in the flow of work. So when I sit down with my people, I'm like, listen, go through your list of your program managers, have a meeting with all of them, educate them on the technology that we're heading in and implementing, and make them subject matter experts and ensure that they are a part of that process of defining those processes. Their job is not just to follow up with somebody and say, like, hey, did you finish this? That was their job yesterday. Their job today is to redefine the flow of work.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Just very quickly to add to that, I would say if you're in any field, doesn't matter. Just take a look at the tools and technologies you're using to do your job and think about it and see if AI can help you, right? And if you don't see that, you don't see AI available to do that in the platform that you are working on a day-to-day basis, go talk to your manager or go talk to the head of IT or your CTO and say, hey, how come, this tool that we've been using and that's part of my day-to-day job doesn't have any new AI integrations that I can use. right? And I think that in itself is pretty powerful in terms of you taking the first step.
And maybe a business opportunity as well.
Exactly.
Great. So just to, if you have a question, please feel free to, yes, this gentleman. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bob Bram. I work for a company called EverCommerce. And you two are fantastic. I've been taking notes like crazy. So thank you very much. The topic was elevating women in tech. And I appreciate you having a more horizontal view about AI, technology, et cetera. But I do want to ask a question relative to some things you said early in this panel and related to the topic women in tech. As you can tell, I am white, I'm male, heterosexual, married with 2 kids. The system is built for me. What coaching would you give me to be more sensitized to help those in my organization who are part of DEI perhaps, or particularly women? What coaching would you give me? Because I've got a blind spot and I could use some input.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. Yeah.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? What we've experienced, what we've been living in is a world where we've asked men what they want and what they like, and we've implemented that. And we've simply forgotten to ask women. There's a stat that I have here that talks about how the AI models in healthcare had a 44% of the cases of AI trying to detect liver disease were missed in women, but caught in men, right? This literally says, like, not only did we not ask the women, we didn't even include their data in the data set so that the model could correctly identify liver in the biological framework of a woman. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Ask the goose, ask the gander. Implement what both of them have said that they desire, because both of their solutions will benefit one another, right? When you implement the changes and the things that women are advocating for, they also benefit men. Like, if you sit down with a man and say, hey, like, do you feel like your workplace is too aggressive and competitive? Like, are they gonna be like, no. Like, yeah, man, it's crazy, right? Like, okay, well, what can we do to improve that? But the likelihood of a man just coming up and saying, like, this is too competitive is low, right? And it's biologic testosterone, right? You inject a lot of testosterone in a woman, she's probably going to have the same behavior as a man, right? So we just have to ask both and implement what both, it's half the population. Like, that shouldn't be hard.
And this has been happening for a while, right? Like, I remember a famous story back in the 1950s when there were, it was a group of men in a CPG business that were saying, like, oh, how can we open up the new razor market? And somebody said, pink it and shrink it. So turn it pink and make it smaller, which is kind of cringy in retrospect, because it's like you want the people who are using the product to be able to give feedback on the product.
Yeah, like one of the things, I love fashion, as you can see. Folks on the
You got a little
podcast
Steve
can't
Jobs
see it, but
action going on, yeah.
I love fashion. But like, women's pockets are either non-existent or half the size of men's pockets. It's like, what? Like, I don't carry a purse, right? I like pockets. Like, women like pockets. Just ask them. They'll say, I love pockets. You ever see a woman wearing a dress with pockets and you compliment her on that dress? The first thing she's gonna say, yes, I love it. It has pockets. She's gonna stick her hand in the pockets and she's gonna be so happy about it. So it's like, I use that because it's such a simple example, but what I'm saying is that applies everywhere in our world. Like, the women are laughing because they love pockets. Give them pockets.
So speaking of adding value, what can the audience hear? Can you share a little bit about what you're both respectively building and how the zombie community can be helpful in growth?
Yeah, so the thing that I'm most excited about lately is I created an app. It's an AI agent, Design Your Life with AI. It's a whole platform. I have a book. It's coming out as well. You can go to designyourlifewithai.com. And I love it because it's not just about figuring out how to use AI in your flow of work. It's actually about both. Like if you were to do like the Russian dolls, life doesn't fit into work, work fits into life, right? So first, you figure out, how does this thing benefit my life? How is this thing changing my life? That makes it so much easier for you to apply it in the scope of your work, in the scope of your education and your learning and all these other things. So Design Your Life with AI is basically uses my life model design methodology, which is something I've been created over the last decade, and it allows people to go through a design thinking process for how they want their life to be, for the habits that they want to build, for the relationships that they want to develop. And the AI helps them with that whole process. And it also teaches you how to use AI for different things. So there was a gentleman, he came to me and he shared his story about how he and his daughter had been estranged for a while. And finally, after years and years of him and his daughter not talking, he said, you know what, I'm gonna go and ask AI. I'm gonna tell AI everything that happened, put the whole conversation, everything in there. Ask AI, what should I say to my daughter? In that process, what happened is he learned how to see the perspective of his daughter. Wow. And so the AI gave him and something to say. He took it and he changed it and he sent it to his daughter. And after years of her not responding to his text, she responded and said, "I love you, Dad."
Oh my God, that's incredible. That's tech for good.
Yes, yeah. It is. And what I'm saying is, if you can learn how to be a better communicator and a better listener and a more compassionate human being by using AI to overcome your own ego, what kind of world can we create with this kind of technology? So Design Your Life with AI is
beautiful. And Falguni, in the last couple of moments that we have here, please tell us a little bit about how the folks can be valuable to what you're building.
I don't have an AI for life, but I think the piece of advice I can give is, think about, and this is what I'm doing myself, right? I have a day job. I run various cybersecurity and compliance programs at my company. I also have to manage a team. The team is spread. It's a global team, based here and in India. So apart from my day job, what I'm trying to do is figure out, again, leveraging AI on a day-to-day basis. Whether it is to extract meaningful information from the data I'm seeing. If previously I would just resort to, opening up, let's say, a simple spreadsheet to do something, right? Now I take a moment, I take a pause, and I think hey, can I do this in a faster way, in an easier way? Can I maybe use Snowflake, right? So,
It's a good lens to look through
Yeah,
things
so
through.
just taking that moment and thinking about it and saying, okay, is there a better way to do this today, knowing all that I know about AI, knowing all that people in my own company and in the tech world are doing? Is there a way to change what I'm doing today, right?
Wow.
And that has helped me on a day-to-day basis. Even if I'm not able to complete my task in that new way, using something new, I've at least thought about it and I've spent the time to figure out a better way.
So we can be more efficient next time.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I've had so much fun. Thank you both for your wisdom and your insight. Let's give a round of applause for these wonderful women. Also want to give a round of applause for ACG Silicon Valley. And thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the show today. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.